Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz. Keeping with our tradition of being 1 minute late, we think this is a good thing. It tantalizes you. It keeps you waiting in anticipation and bated breath for what's going to happen next. Michael also happens to be the host of his show, The Rational Egoist, which I hope every single one of you are watching and or listening to. Michael, is there anything new? Is it the Jim Valiant episode still out there?
Jim Valiant episode still up there. Soon, after you and I record, there will be a Mark Pellegrino episode up there that I'm sure everybody will absolutely love. And then we've got some great stuff coming up. And I'm so excited because Persephone taught me how to do something today. And I'm so happy about it. I can't wait to unleash what I've learned.
I have a feeling I know what that is.
No, you don't feel. I don't know. We're not doing any of that. No, you can't come in. Oh, I have a feeling. We're just going to get at it.
Okay, we're just going to get at it. Okay, so first of all, folks, I have to do our daily disclaimer. What we say here is not directly representative of the American Capitalist Party. If you want to know what the policies of the American Capitalist Party are, go to americancapitalistparty.org. Please donate. Please join. Be a part of the change. We are having an election, a local election in Argo, Alabama, coming up very soon, where our esteemed treasurer will be up for councilman. If he wins this, he beats the moneyed establishment of the South and inserts the first Capitalist Party member into the community of American governance, and we consider that a victory. We consider the fact that he's running right now and changing minds and influencing people, we consider that already quite a win, because there's already a number of folks who want to start chapters in other states. So
he's going to be on tomorrow with us, by the way, for 15 minutes, he told me.
Okay, well, thank you for announcing that to me.
Alex Freeman or Alan Thomas, we're not really sure what his name is, but he's going to be here.
Whatever your identity is for real, we'll call him Intrepid. All right, the man.
All right. He goes by Invisible Man, but we can invent whatever we want.
Intrepid is better. Intrepid is better. That's William Stevenson, like the spy master from Canada. He was called Intrepid. He was the guy that Ian Fleming based James Bond on. And we have a question already coming before we've even started reviewing.
It's a statement. It's not a question. That's why you have to read it before you talk about it, because it's not a question.
Give me 1.5 milliseconds to look at it, so I assumed it was.
But you just went right into it's a question. It's an excellent statement from the great Ray Jacobson. Our what is he? Our thumbnail guy.
He's our thumbnail guy. Well, go ahead and read it for me, since you probably have better eyes than I.
I got my new glasses. Because I broke the old ones, but I don't need them up close. Anyway, and remember, you don't have to be an objectivist to be an American capitalist. The party welcomes anyone who champions individual rights.
I think we want to steal that race, and I think we want to put that on either Capitalist Corner somewhere, the website of Capitalist Corner, or maybe Miss Rizzi is out there. She could pop that into our Instagram so everybody knows this party is open to every individual who is an individualist. You don't have to be an objectivist. We accept you irrespective of what your creed is, provided you believe in individual rights. You are a potential member of the American Capitalist Party. So look, you sent me an article today, Econ 101, A Compass for Lost Country. This is from the Daily Economy, and I actually posted this to Persephone because I want to put this up on the Capitalist Party. There it is. Look at this. I knew it was going to be a way of displaying things. I knew it. It's because I had that conversation earlier with Persephone, I think.
I'm so embarrassed at how easy this is and how us two dumbasses are like, how do we do it? How do we do it? It's really like humiliating. Yeah. I couldn't believe how she's and Persephone's like, yeah, you can do this with anything. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand we're morons. So I don't know.
Well, look, you're the one who has the responsibility for putting this stuff up. So I'm going to put more.
Way to shift the blame. Way to shift the blame.
You for this particular thing.
Folks, you're an actor. You live in these spaces, and yet you couldn't teach me how to do it. We had to go to an outsider from another country.
As an actor, I live in the space of Moronville. Let's not go there.
Is that like Margaritaville? Is it similar?
It's similar, but happier. Well, folks, Econ 101 is something that is missing, I think, from every young person's learning today. And I think one of the reasons that young people are inclined to be socialistic in their thinking, is not just because that's what they're taught from kindergarten all the way through secondary school and into colleges. And it's because it sort of appeals to their, by osmosis to their moral inclinations, what we would call their moral intuitions. But they haven't learned economics, like basic principles of economics. If they knew these basic principles of economics, I think they would vote differently and behave differently. This would also choose as a check on their premises. If they have socialist premises because they have adopted a collectivist altruist perspective, this could potentially check those premises as well. So this article talks about 20, are they rules, economic rules, basically, that, or would you call them economic laws? What would you call these, Michael?
Principles.
Principles. Okay, principles, laws, principles of economics that everybody should learn. And once you have learned these and they've become a felt sense in you, I don't think any politician from this time forward will be able to fool you into thinking you can vote your way to prosperity, or you could vote your way to anything good, or vote your way into a good economy, unless you're voting for an American Capitalist Party candidate who actually wants to get the government out of your way, shrink it, make it smaller, make it only a defender of property and individual rights, in which case that is good. So look at these 20 principles, folks, starting with people act with purpose. Is that true, Michael? Do people act with purpose?
Yes. I would qualify that by saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be a clearly defined purpose. It doesn't have to be well thought out. You could be acting haphazardly, but any action that you take, you're acting for a reason. Your action is aimed at something.
Indeed, this is true. Is this the number one principle of economics, or is it just number one just because? I think that's important to understand, that people act with purpose. They act with a goal in mind, for sure.
I don't know that the guy who wrote the article did it that way, but if you want to say it's the first, I'll go with you. I'm a team player.
Okay, it's certainly up there. Number two, trade always benefits both sides. Now we are under the regime that believes in zero-sum games. When he's not in power, we still have a regime on the left that believes in zero-sum games. They just slightly tilt who gets the benefits and who gets the detractions and who has to pay the penalties for this. But trade, folks, benefits everyone, or you would not trade. If that iPhone were not worth more to me than the dollar I had in my pocket, I would not exchange the dollar for the iPhone. So it's when people think of profit in a capitalist society, they think only of these companies making lots of money, but they don't think of all the benefits that the person exchanging with that company is getting, because they've decided their dollar is worth less to them than that product in their life. I think that's a very, very important concept, don't you think, Michael?
I think it's wrong.
In orienting your okay. Before I go on, why?
I agree with the sentiment, but I think that what actually is meant, that people that engage in trade, any two people who engage in trade, both believe they're going to benefit. It doesn't mean it always will benefit.
All right, you're getting way.
You have to. But what do you want me to do? We're talking about economics and how people need to learn economics, and I tell you it's right.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the worst case scenario where people are engaging in irrational trades and they're not actually working for values and they're doing things that hurt their lives.
What are you talking about? You don't have to be acting for irrational trade. You ever watch Seinfeld?
They're exchanging something for drugs that hurts their lives, or does something.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't even have to be that. I'm just saying that people enter into trades because they both believe that they're going to benefit.
Yes,
that's absolutely the case, and we absolutely need to respect people's rights to enter into such agreements. But it's not a universal thing. I mean, you can enter into a trade and end up worse off for it. I brought up Seinfeld, and Jim Valiant's in the audience, and he's going to remember the episode of Seinfeld where Kramer traded his broken police scanner, for Newman's helmet. Kramer ends up getting kicked in the head with the helmet on, and the helmet saves his life, whereas Newman has the broken scanner, doesn't know it, drives and gets pulled over by the cops because he was speeding. Clearly, they didn't both benefit from the trade, but
there was
they
a fraud
both,
there. That was fraud. There was a fraud.
there certainly was. There was a fraud,
He didn't know the scanner was broken.
no, but there doesn't always have to be a fraud because people are fallible. Nevertheless,
generally speaking,
people deserve. He said people deserve dignity. What does that mean? I don't know that I said that. Who said that? Just get to the.
No. This is one down in the principles as we will get down into the principles. There's going to be a people deserve dignity thing, and Ian, we're going to get into some of the details of what that means. So don't rush.
Oh, he can get into the details, but when I want to, I get a lecture.
That's right. Yeah, because
I've been warned about these Hollywood types.
I was sort of talking just in how do you say this?
Loosely. You were using language very loosely.
But in a way that we capitalists can do, which is generally speaking, yes, I was saying, generally speaking, you trade to mutual benefit. Now, you can say even more accurately that you believe you are getting a benefit, in which case, we can talk about things that I think distract us from the conversation. But people need to know that trade benefits both sides, and especially if you're a rational actor, it will benefit both sides. It will tend to do that. People dislike uncertainty. Now we are living under a regime right now that is whimsical, where the president has outright admitted that he doesn't act according to any intellectual principles. He acts by instinct, by what his gut tells him, which often means whatever the last person in the room said to him. So that makes for a mercurial person whose policies are slipshod, very chaotic. Nobody knows what's going on. But as Rand talked about markets, people need to plan for the long term in markets. That's the opposite incentive of politicians who only need to plan for the next election cycle. But if you're in a business, you have to plan over the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. You have to anticipate changes. And for that, you need certainty. That's why the law is good, having certainty in property law, having certainty in the way that taxes go, so that people can make decisions on how to allocate capital. They make those decisions based on certainty. Right now, we live in very uncertain times because our president is very chaotic. And people dislike that uncertainty, and it creates chaos and disincentivizes market interactions. What say you, Michael? Do you agree with that?
I do. I think that there's varying degrees. I think some people are, more tolerant of uncertainty. I just shared the article to both X and to Facebook for Persephone and Bonnie, but I think that there's some people who really can't deal with it and some people who can deal better. But I do think that uncertainty is not a good state to be in, and people avoid it. People need to know. Well, let's just go broad on this, right? We have to be certain that certain causes will bring about certain effects. If we didn't know that, we literally could not behave. So we have to have a level of certainty in our lives, or else we just go bonkers. And that's the
basic level of reality. Okay.
Yes, nobody wants to go bonkers. That's my own rule. Can I just tell you that having Persephone here, because I can actually see the facial expressions that she makes, it gives a whole new dynamic here from just seeing what they say in the chat, because I now know her actual reactions, not just what gets typed on the screen.
How can you see her? How can you see her reactions and I can't?
Well, because I got the StreamYard. I'm the one that sent you the link. I was under the impression that we were all able to see everything, but it turns out, no, that's not the case. Something else I learned. But I can see her, and she's very amused sometimes. It's just a very interesting new dynamic to the program that's entirely irrelevant to the discussion, but I thought it would be nice.
I think it's interesting because you have sort of an editorial person behind the scenes there who can actually she'll serve as a sort of conscience to you. You can tell whether or not you're hitting or missing a point based on her reactions. Okay, what? That never landed. Forget it. Now, number four, I think people are going to find astounding, Michael, because I think you hear a lot in social media, especially from the socialist sites, how much government does, how much government drives growth, how much government drives invention and innovation. That's not actually true. Even when they point to like, ooh, the cell phone, ooh, they can point to the computer, oh, these things that came up as a result of, well, the government was trying to decipher information from an enemy, so they invented this machine to do it. It's really the entrepreneurs in the commercial world that made that technology accessible and improved upon it to the degree that now we possess in our hands a computer almost infinitely stronger than the ones that IBM purchased. The what did they call those?
Computers?
No. The main, what do they call them? Not. We have PCs. We have personal computers now, but they were like the mainline computers that they had. They took up 2 floors of a
Mainframes? I don't know.
So we went out of the mainframes because of entrepreneurship. So this technology evolved because it went to the marketplace as opposed to remaining what it would have been had there been no competition. What do you say about this? Because some people think the government is what drives experimentation in drugs, innovation, in all kinds of different areas, including technology.
I think that this is by no means a discovery of mine, which is going to be ironic, my use of the word discovery here, but entrepreneurship is largely a process of creation and discovery, whereby people that are willing to take risks, who are more comfortable with the uncertainty that we talked about before, endeavor to create new things, to exploit opportunities that are out there, to find things that people want and to give those things to people. And when they do that through, by getting a capitalist to invest or investing their own money, they drive economic growth. I would highly recommend a former professor of Mr. Jim Valiant on this subject. Obviously look to Ayn Rand. She's great, but Israel Kirzner is awesome on entrepreneurial discovery, on the role of entrepreneurs in the economy. I think that anybody that's interested in the subject should definitely check out Israel Kirzner. And I'm looking for Jim Valiant to come into the chat and vindicate what I've just said.
I've never read Israel, so Persephone, please put that in the notes there so that we can provide some of his work in the Capitalist Corner library so that people can refer to that from now on. Number 5, folks, this is going to surprise Kathy Hochul, the governor of the state of New York, who is saying that she's going to give free food to any child in the school system. But apparently, Michael, nothing is in fact free. Is that true?
It is true, because anything that's out there needs to be produced, and that requires effort. I mean, even if you're talking about something so simple as, our primitive ancestors living in the wild, if they're going to go, they could, even in the case where there's berries on a tree, it's still not free. They have to actually take the effort to go get it. Now, it is true that one person can benefit as a moocher or a looter off the product of the production of somebody else. But nonetheless, whatever is consumed must first be discovered or produced. And that takes effort. It takes time. It takes intelligence.
Indeed, folks. Even fresh water, which you think you could probably drink straight out of a lake, has to be processed by humans.
Hold on one second. I've got to address this, because this type of behavior is just, it's acceptable. What the hell do I know? But Christopher Smith says, and I'm going to post it here, these are assertions without proof. Well, the problem, Christopher, is that if you actually read the article, the author goes on to discuss each one of these. And this is meant to be a quick list of economic truths. Obviously, we do not have the time here in this show to prove every single thing that's up there. What we can do is elucidate what they mean, clarify, offer some evidence for it. But what we're really trying to do is get people to want to study the subject for themselves and go out and read, for instance, the aforementioned Israel Kirzner, or a Henry Hazlitt, Economics in One Lesson, or Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics.
Yes, this is an amuse-bouche. This is an appetizer. This is an hors d'oeuvre. This is something to whet the appetite, folks. But entrepreneurs are people who are willing to risk capital. They have ideas and they need freedom in order to risk that capital. They need freedom in order to make that idea concrete. They need liberty to do that. What you find in a statist economy are bureaucrats. And those people make decisions from the top down, and they crush the entrepreneurial spirit, which is a risk-taking spirit. It's an adventurous spirit. It's willing to risk capital, risk bankruptcy to try something new, to take something in a new direction, to create a new market. The bureaucrats will only give you what has been tried before. It's like studio heads at studios. One of the things that broke, I think, the studio's monopoly on production, and why it's become so widespread now with streaming networks, is because they really wanted something that's been done before. So when you had to pitch them a project, you had to say, well, this is like Friends meets meets SNL meets. You had to give them an idea of what's come before and just let them know it was a rehash of what's been. And that's why, you get so much bad creative stuff going on in, I think, in the establishment Hollywood, and you get great creative stuff going on the fringes, where people are willing to be entrepreneurs and invest in new stuff. So nothing is free. Free markets create prosperity. How is that possible, Michael? Because I thought the government created prosperity.
Well, let's go back to principle number 4, that entrepreneurship drives growth. In order to be an entrepreneur, you have to be free to discover things, to create things, to sell
Didn't I just
whatever items you've produced. Yeah, you said it, but then you asked me a question that has the same answer. Don't preempt me by saying the answer you're gonna ask me next.
You're repeating you're just repeating what I said and then taking ownership of what I said.
No, but you can take ownership of what you said. But actually, while you were saying it, I thought I missed something, and I said, "Oh, he must have jumped to the next principle." But actually, you didn't. You just were talking out of turn, because what the previous thing was that nothing is free, but then you jumped to free markets without telling anybody. But the bottom line is that if people are not free to buy, to sell, to produce, to create, then you end up with all kinds of distortions, because now what is produced, created, and consumed isn't the result of what free people want to do, but of what government bureaucrats and politicians want them to do.
So wait a minute. Did you say that I skipped over nothing is free, or that?
No, I didn't say you skipped over it. Oh my Lord.
What are you saying?
You asked me what I thought about nothing is free. I gave a perfect answer to nothing is free. Then you started talking about nothing is free, but what you actually were addressing is how free markets work. So then the next thing you asked me
I
said
nothing is free. I said nothing is free. Even if you think fresh water, you could just simply drink it out of a lake. You can't. It needs to be processed by human labor. Everything does.
That's fine, but you also were addressing the role of free markets, which was the next one. And then once you asked me, I gave the answer, which was the answer to that question. And then you said, well, I already answered that. Okay, but then you shouldn't have asked me the question.
Okay, don't fuck with me. It's too early in the morning.
I'm not, but Persephone agrees with me. I can see it all over her face.
No, she's not. She's not. She's just acting for you to make you feel good. Okay, so are we on the free markets create prosperity?
She's not an actor. I just did free markets.
Okay, good. So you just did free markets create prosperity. So
they do. And the bottom line is, as the author of the article points out, you can compare countries that have relatively free economies to those that don't. And you can see how those that are free end up being more successful. Those that are not free end up shitholes.
Yes.
The first time I ever came across this actually was in Milton Friedman's book, Free to Choose, which is the first economics book I ever read. And he said, we have actually, the closest thing to real world experiments that we can have. And he said, you can compare East Germany to West Germany, North Korea to South Korea, Taiwan and Hong Kong to mainland China, Cuba to Florida. And his point was that these are people that are of the same genetics, same cultural backgrounds, the terrain, the geography is basically the same. And in every instance, the free market outperforms those that are not.
Indeed. And still the commies try to come up with excuses as to why this is not the case. And you'll be surprised at some of their rationalizations, Michael. You know what they say about Cuba? They say, "Oh, it's because of all the embargoes against Cuba." What's this? Oh my God, knock off the bullying or I'm out of here. Stop.
Teresa is telling me I'm a bully.
No, Teresa, he's not a bully. He's having fun. He's having
Oh
fun.
my goodness.
We're having fun with each other. So free
My
market,
feelings are hurt.
don't let your feelings get hurt, Mike. I know you're sensitive. Free markets do create prosperity, folks. It's statistically verifiable. Voluntary exchange works best as well. Why do you think that is, Michael? And why do you think maybe voluntary exchange also contributes to, let's say, the dignity of a human being, as opposed to all the compulsion we see in the marketplace today?
Um, I have to agree to some extent. I think it was Christopher. Yes, Christopher Smith says that 6 and 7 are the same. I think 6, 7, and 2 are all part of the same principle. That when people are free to exchange, they get what they want, and then that ultimately will lead to prices that lead to more people getting what they want. Free exchange obviously is good, but I think we've kind of already said what we can about this. It's kind of redundant.
Yeah, some of these are going to be redundant, but I think redundancy is how you learn, right? Repetition is the essence of learning. Price signals matter. Now, this is important because we have an administration now that's going back and forth on tariffs, sending very mixed signals to people. He wants to screw with the Fed, sending very mixed signals with respect to interest rates. All of this stuff affects prices overall. But prices are a form of information, folks. They're a form of information that entrepreneurs and investors and people with capital use to know where to put that capital, to know where to allocate it. And if they're getting bad signals, they're going to put it in the wrong places. And this is what creates that boom bust cycle where it's something balloons up because of its the boom is artificially created by either credit or money being flooded into that area through government fiat. And then eventually it expands, of course, beyond its actual real market value, and it busts as it must. That's what they call a correction. So prices matter. Price signals matter. Michael, talk about it. I mean, I might have just said what needed to be said, but you could probably talk even more about it.
It's very important. So go back to number one, that people act with purpose, right? People act with goals. They based on what they subjectively estimate of a higher value. That's what they pursue, what they believe has value. The trades that they make, as you referenced before, they make a trade because they think that in their mind, what they're getting back is of more value than what they're giving up. Right. So when you think about prices on the market are ultimately formed by the combination of all the values that are operating in the market, all the supply and the demand, what people want to get and what people want to produce. So as the demand for a product goes up, the price will go up, all things remaining equal. So if you are the entrepreneur, right, and you're looking for an opportunity to make a profit, you're going to be looking for where prices are rising in a given area above and beyond the cost of production. You get to know that signal based on what people want, because when they value it, the price goes up. When they don't value it, the price goes down. It tells them what needs to be produced, which is why Mises wrote his absolutely devastating critique of socialism, from which I don't know how socialism ever recovered, where he demonstrates that without money prices that indicate the subjective evaluations of the populace, there's simply no way to know what should be produced. And he's absolutely correct on that.
Agreed. Everything has opportunity costs. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, Michael?
Opportunity cost. And, it's interesting because the other day we actually talked about George Reisman. And George Reisman said that opportunity cost does not exist. There's no such thing. I disagree with Mr. Reisman on this, and I disagree vehemently. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that opportunity cost is something that was discovered and elaborated by the Austrian economist Friedrich von Wieser. I'm not positive on that. Someone can look it up and tell me if I'm right or wrong. But opportunity cost says basically that time is limited. So any action that you take, you necessarily are doing that at the expense of everything else that you want to do or that you could be doing. For instance, I'm doing this show right now, which means I can't be playing with the dogs or I can't be cleaning the house. Conversely, if I chose to clean the house and play with the dogs, I wouldn't be able to do this show. So what they talk about in price formation, that the prices of goods reflect the opportunity cost that's given up. What else could I have used a given product for? So if I'm going to say we have to buy screws, screwdrivers, and planks of wood to make the boat that you and I have so long wanted to make, so we can go sail around together. Well, what are we giving up? What would be the cost or the price that we would have to that we would be able to sell the product for that we're giving up? So say that we're giving up the idea to make wagons, right? So the opportunity cost, we're giving up wagons in order to produce boats. The price of the boat will reflect the opportunity cost that was passed over for the wagon.
I think if a lot of people understood that, that would change a lot within the regulatory state. Government power reduces liberty. I mean, this is almost self-explanatory. The government restrains action. That's what they do. That's what their job is, to restrain. They're supposed to restrain force, but they wind up restraining rational action when they become a regulatory state. And of course, that is the opposite of what the American Capitalist Party wants to do. Inflation comes from money creation. We had this discussion the other day. This is true. We believe that creating money, fiat currency, it creates price inflation across the board because there's just more money than there are goods, and that creates the price inflation. And by the way, it destroys your savings. It's a way of taxing your savings. Destruction is not growth. Now, this is something that people look at war, Michael, when they say, oh, war got us out of the Depression. War got us out. War is big business. War makes people lots and lots of money. And it's true, it might make arms dealers a certain amount of money. But overall, when you're creating things that are simply made to be destroyed, or all you're doing is destroying businesses and creating uncertainty so that businesses don't know whether they're going to be blown up from one minute to the next, that destruction does not create prosperity. Would you agree with that? War is not big business.
I absolutely agree with it. And I am in the process right now of looking up Frederick Bastiat's Broken Window essay, because I'm going to share it, because that it encapsulates exactly what the principle is here. That the idea that Keynesians have that government investment creates prosperity, it is just nonsensical. That when something gets destroyed, that doesn't create jobs. It destroys jobs. It misdirects money and investment into areas that wouldn't otherwise come about. So let me just find this, because I think it's important.
I think the broken window, Bastiat's broken window is in this article as a matter of fact, and used as a way of defining that particular.
I'm going to post the actual essay. I just have to find it. I think
also, folks, trade fosters peace. Trade fosters peace. Right now, we have a president in power who is unilaterally deciding to declare trade wars on the entire world. What his motivation could be, I don't understand the rational motivation behind it. I certainly can see some pathological motivations behind it, but it's certainly not fostering great relations with our best trade neighbors, Mexico and Canada. Certainly not fostering good relations with the European Union. Or with England, or even with China. It's in fact embedding hostility, starting trade wars, and creating a situation that I think could trigger larger international problems down the line. Are you for that 13th principle? I believe trade fosters peace. It
does, and you can actually, you can think about it. If I know Mark Pellegrino, and I could either rob him one time for the $500 he has in his pocket, or I can trade with him over a period of years, maybe decades, where I'm getting what I want, I'm going to opt for the second. So it's not out of benevolence that I would choose that route. It's a simple calculus that I'm going to benefit from this. And if you put that across countries, You say, well, the United States could invade whatever country you want and just take all their stuff. Yeah, that's fine. That's a one-time thing. Whereas if we trade with them, we can develop a long-term relationship where our citizens benefit from these trades. And from their perspective, goes back to principle 2, they will believe that they are benefiting as well. And in this case, when it's spread across that wide of a thing, the truth that that wide of a what's the word I'm looking for, population, the vast majority of people would benefit. I don't understand how this happens. Mark just takes off on me.
Because my little guy is bursting through his pillow barrier. His head is right now poking through, and I'm debating whether to bring him up on the chair or not. But he gets restless on the chair, so I'm seeing if he'll move. And right now, his little head is just remaining where it is. It's very adorable. No, my time cannot be used elsewhere. That's my point. My time can only be used according to my values. There are no other possibilities. This is due to my hierarchy of values and listening to these. Okay, good. Okay.
So, well, simple question. Are values a matter of choice?
Are you asking me or Diego?
I'm asking you, I'm asking Diego, because if values are a matter of choice, then as you're making up your hierarchy of values, you're necessarily foregoing some things for others. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't do two things at once. You can't occupy two spaces at once. So the bottom line is you have to choose one thing over the other. Of course, that's according to your hierarchy of values. That is not in dispute. That's actually what the point means, is that there's a lot of things in life that I want to do. That there's a lot of things that I would like to do right now, but I choose the thing that has the most value to me in this moment, and I do that, and that's necessarily at the exclusion of anything else I might want to do.
So let's get to socialism always fails, because what I see constantly in I just saw who's the Hassan Piker. Have you heard of Hassan Piker?
I've heard of him, but I don't know much about him.
He's a big socialist that even the ACP guys are admire, or at least are jealous of. When he was asked why do you think capitalism isn't good, he says, well, because it's failed. And of course he doesn't define his terms at all, and he says it hasn't failed for you or me, because of course he's quite wealthy from preaching about socialism.
Hold on. I think we have to address this. Deeper with Diego has some questions and some statements that I just don't want to brush aside. I'm sorry. I know you were on a roll, but I do want to address this.
Go ahead.
He said earlier, you said if I wanted to make a boat, I couldn't make a wagon, but I never wanted to make a wagon or a house or a robot wife. I wanted to make a boat. Deeper with Diego. Obviously, I here cannot state every single thing that a person might want to do, that every person on the planet might want to do. The point is that if it's a hypothetical, if somebody wanted to make a wagon and they wanted to make a boat, that the opportunity cost is relevant, because they can only make one. And the point here especially is, in an economy where people are competing for various projects, for various commodities, for various factors of production, there are going to be people, for instance, that want to produce a wagon. There's going to be others that are going to want to produce the boat. So when the boat is produced instead of the wagon, the price of the boats, and it would be boats actually, is going to reflect the foregoing of the creation of the wagons.
Agreed. Now, one of the things that Mises was great about, and I think even Thomas Sowell hit on this, is the reasons why socialism fails. Now, people adopt socialism because they think it's the more moral system, because it's got social in it and it focuses on the prosperity of the other as opposed to the self. So it's in keeping with the dominant moral ethics of altruism. But Mises talked about the calculation problem, and Thomas Sowell talked about the knowledge problem. The reason why these centralized economies fail is for these reasons. Now, talk about the calculation problem.
I don't know that they're actually different principles.
I don't think they're different principles.
No, Friedrich Hayek actually talks a lot about the knowledge problem. And I believe that Israel Kirzner in his Entrepreneurship does as well, is that you simply don't have knowledge. There's no central agency. There's no person, there's no computer that could know what everybody in an economy wants, right? There's so many different areas of demand out there. There's so many different values out there. So, even an entrepreneur that's looking for, to discover or to sell focuses on a given area. He can't even focus on all the areas. Even in a free economy where prices are reflecting the demands of everybody, you still have to focus on a limited amount of things. So the idea that a bureaucracy, a government bureaucracy, could plan for the entire country is just absurd.
Well, now, Michael, the socialists, I think they have their out with artificial intelligence. I think AI will now be able to run a centralized economy, and even AI that might have access to all the archives of the world still cannot make value decisions based on me or based on Michael or based on 300 million other people. It still cannot do that, even with all of the knowledge that it has.
Not unless somebody can create an AI, which I do not believe is possible. But unless they can create AI that can not only read your mind now, but can predict your future behaviors, that is a utter pipe dream. Why can't we keep Frankie here?
We can't keep Frankie here because he's too restless.
Okay.
So he's too restless, and there's not enough room on this huge chair that I have for both of us. Because there would be if he were normal, but he has dementia, so it doesn't quite work that way. So profits and losses guide progress. This should be obvious to anybody who just lives life, right? If you see profits and losses in life, behavior that turns out bad for you, behavior that actually turns out well for you should guide the way you act in the future. And profits indicate success with respect to value creation, and losses suggest failure, right? So was this to me? Ask a behaviorist about that.
No, I just posted it. You didn't have to address it right away. I'll address it when the time comes. I just wanted to post it. It was talking about choice and values and predicting future behavior.
But Michael, people, especially on the left, hate profits. They say the bottom line for a company is profits. It's not about people. But in the end, it winds up being about people because the profits represent value creation, and it represents people's response to that value creation for the most part.
Yeah. So I think that if you go back to people act with purpose, right? Von Mises pointed this out, that every basic, and Rothbard did as well, every action ultimately is aimed at profit, in this sense that the person who's acting wants to substitute a state of affairs that he believes is, or she believes is, superior to the current state of affairs. In other words, better off. Now, somebody might say, well, what about self-sacrificial behavior? Of course, a person can sacrifice themselves, but by doing so, they're engaging in an action that they believe is going to bring about a state of affairs that is ultimately superior to the current one. So all behavior, in some sense, is directed at profit. So what the socialists actually...
Well, that sort of lends itself to the argument that everybody acts in their self-interest.
No, it doesn't, because here's the problem with that. And you need to read Nathaniel Branden's article or essay in The Virtue of Selfishness. Isn't everybody selfish? It ultimately depends what we're talking about. In the philosophical, ethical sense of egoism, what we're talking about is a person that identifies what's actually in their best interest and then chooses to act accordingly. So a person can be motivated to act by a state of affairs that they wish to substitute, but it's ultimately bad for them personally. So they wouldn't be acting in what we call their rational self-interest.
I wanted to make that distinction. I know the distinction myself, having read Nathaniel Branden and having had him as my therapist for a year. But I didn't want that argument to come up in the chat. Doesn't that mean that everybody acts in their self-interest?
It was a preemptive strike. I can respect the preemptive strike in this case. So Manu, and I don't think she agrees with the behaviorist, but she previously said, well, the behaviorist, asked the behaviorist. It's an interesting thing because I remember reading Beyond Freedom and Dignity by B.F. Skinner, one of the founding fathers of behaviorism, along with Edward Thorndike and John Watson. And it was interesting to me because as he's talking about how all behavior is determined, he's making recommendations as if one, he has a choice, and two, the people acting has to have a choice. For instance, one of the things they will say is all human behavior is determined. Therefore, criminals cannot help being criminals. Therefore, it's unjust to punish them. We shouldn't punish them. Okay, but I don't have a choice but to punish them, right? You simply can't escape the contradictions inherent in behaviorism, which is why it's just a nonsensical ideology and a nonsensical viewpoint.
Yeah, self-detonating. I love self-detonating philosophical points like that. Listen, prosperity comes from freedom. I think we've already discussed that. That's sort of redundancy, but absolutely true. Because you can realize your potential. You're free to realize your potential, and not so under other regimes. Markets solve problems. Now, you always hear this in socialist circles. You think markets are going to solve every problem on the planet, and that's just impossible. And there is some truth to that. But the truth of the matter is that the overwhelming majority of problems that we have today are caused by government interference in problems that could be solved through individuals coming up with the solutions to them. Individuals in a market competing will be far more innovative and be far more capable of overcoming those problems than some group of distant experts on a panel that has to go through 50 or 60 bureaus before they come up with a decision. Do you agree with this concept, Michael?
I think that free markets allow people to solve problems. I know I'm a stickler and I'm a literalist and it drives people crazy, but markets technically don't solve anything, right? But when people are free, they're free to look for solutions to problems. Problems are an inherent part of life. Life in large part is a problem to be solved. What foods will sustain us? What beverages are safe? What animals can we try to domesticate? Which ones ought we to always avoid? Which ones are we just indifferent to and safe to be around? What's proper shelter? What are proper building techniques? And we can go on and on. Medications, vaccines, teeth brushing. And when you are free, you have more scope to solve these problems, for those entrepreneurs to look for where there's opportunities, for where there's needs that are not being met. But when the government gets in the way and regulates, that puts a wall or at least a tripwire between people and the solutions that they're looking for.
So we assume markets are places where there's an absence of force. And so that implies freedom to me. So free minds solve problems, not those shackled by bureaucratic red tape or political expediency folks. So as a capitalist party member, as the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, I would want people to be as free as possible. I want as many minds on a project as possible. I want as many minds solving the problems for themselves as possible, which lends itself to dignity and self-esteem. Solving problems, dealing with reality, having your own moral agency lends itself to dignity and self-esteem. These aren't things that you just talk yourself into. They're things that you see with relation to yourself in action, your capacity to deal with reality. Engages your sense of self-esteem. Now, this seems to be a controversial point in the chat. People deserve dignity. Do they deserve dignity? That's certainly questionable, but we know I have a perspective as a capitalist that dignity comes from applied work, integrity to your values. It comes to an intermixing of an interaction with reality, as opposed to the left that thinks dignity comes from supplying material needs irrespective of where that supply comes from. It doesn't have to come from your own action. It's just by virtue of the fact that you exist, you get it. I think that has a deleterious effect on your self-esteem, to be honest with you.
I love that word, deleterious.
Thank you.
I think it's not used nearly enough. I've used it, but it doesn't catch on.
And I think it degrades society. Whereas I think the opposite, when you are working and when you earn what you take, that adds to your self-esteem, and that is part of your dignity. Would you agree with that, Michael?
I agree with what you said, but there's two words here that I think need to be defined, and that is deserve and dignity. When I hear deserve, I think about what is owed to a person, right? That's what I believe.
That's the problem. I think that's the most problematic word.
Okay. Dignity just means worthy of respect or deserving of respect. So if we're operating at a base level, right? I think that all human beings, all things remaining equal, meaning that they haven't done something to forfeit that right or that which they deserve, is people do deserve a base level of respect, meaning you don't steal from them, you don't manipulate them, rob them, try to control them, that, that sort of thing. That level of dignity at that base level, I think, is absolutely accurate. And I think that only freedom does allow for that, to get to your point. I don't think that that's something that has to be earned, in the sense that I think that all humans who aren't violating rights, and maybe that's the way you earn it, but I don't think we can assume rights violation, right? I think that we have to do basically, like I said, a base level, all things remaining equal, ceteris paribus analysis on this. And I think in that sense, people
Ceteris paribus. I don't think that is used enough
I don't either. I think that we need to bring, I think, matter of fact, Mark, I think it has a deleterious impact on our lives that ceteris paribus is not used more often.
I couldn't help but agree with you. I think it needs to be used more
I think if we, matter of fact, even more, I'll go one step further. If we use ceteris paribus and we use deleterious, this is likely to have a very salubrious impact on our cultural discussions.
Bless you. You said ceteris paribus. I assume you sneezed. And lastly, government spending can't add to the economy, and oftentimes this is figured into gross domestic product, isn't it? Like the amount that the government is somehow figured into our prosperity, when it's really just draining capital from potentially more productive uses to what the government's priorities are. And we're certainly in that situation now with Trump, who wants to steer entire industries towards his agenda, and actually bring us back in time to a manufacturing community when we're really actually too rich for that. We're beyond that. We're a service economy. But he wants to bring us back in time because, of course, it looks good for him and to those of the MAGA people who don't quite understand the way economics work. So government can't spend us into prosperity, folks. They can't add to the economy. It only takes away from it. It takes capital away from you and your productive interests and puts it where the politicians prioritize it for their own crazy little interests. There was, I almost don't know which article to go to next. We only have a few minutes left.
Well, let me just say quickly, I believe GDP, and there might be some qualifications because they come up with all kinds of formulas, but it's basically consumption plus investment plus government spending is how they arrive at GDP. It's SIG, because whenever I've seen it written, I can't help but think of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never smoked, by the way. I mean, I have smoked a cigarette, but I've never been a smoker.
I'm going to go to this one since it's sort of my particular interest.
Just to ignore my smoking comment.
Should I not? Should we talk about it?
Well, you could have asked. You could have at least maybe heard and said, "Oh, I've never smoked either."
I don't smoke. And I'll go even further. I convinced my mom to not smoke. She smoked from the time she was 15 until 30. Now, I was a relatively bad student. I was growing up to be a bad boy, but I saw this video in health class when I was in 5th grade, and it showed the lungs of a smoker with the lungs of a non-smoker, and
all black.
Yeah, and it scared the crap out of me. So I said, "Mom, you got to stop smoking." She said, "I'll stop smoking if you get straight A's." From that time forward in my academic career, I got straight A's for her. I even got A's in handwriting. I had the worst handwriting in the planet. I've reverted back to the worst handwriting in the planet, if you notice. But I emulated this girl, Joy Hoffman, in my class, who had the best handwriting. And I went from a C- in handwriting to an A+ in handwriting, just for my mom. She quit smoking and still died of lung cancer at 56. I tried to convince my grandfather to stop smoking. He's like, "I enjoy it." It was one of his few pleasures in life, quote unquote, a vice. But he passed away from cancer as well. Lung cancer, colon cancer that spread to his colon. So I have a particular fixation against smoking. That's why I'm so health conscious. I've always been health conscious my whole life, but particularly smoking nags at me, and people who smoke, I really feel are making a terrible, terrible, terrible choice for their life. Just to crunch down certain, feelings for a minute, or to get that fix of nicotine, it's just not worth the potential years of suffering that you may go through and early death.
Yeah, I've always thought smoking was ridiculous because I understood, like, I would smoke weed, right? Because I enjoyed the high, right? I would get something out of it. I knew it was bad for me, but I was still getting something out of it. Same thing with alcohol. But with
Right.
cigarettes, it just seemed to me that you're just killing yourself for nothing. Like, there's nothing to get out of it. It just seemed very bizarre to me. See, we had a good discussion about smoking now. Good. I'm happy we did that.
Okay, thank you. So now I can get to almost 2 years after October 7th, 2023, when Hamas terrorists murdered 859 civilians, including 38 children, some of them in their cribs, by the way, and 274 Israeli Defense Force troops, and took 253 hostages. Some of the surviving captors may soon be returning home. Following meetings last week in Cairo between Egyptian and Qatari mediation, and Khalil al-Hayya, the leader of Hamas's political bureau, who should be dead, in my opinion. On Sunday, the mediators reportedly extended a ceasefire proposal to Hamas. On Monday, Hamas officials informed the news outlets that they would agree to the proposed deal, which would return, I think, 10 of the remaining 20 living hostages and about something like 18 or 19 of the dead hostages. Still not everyone. They're still keeping them as bargaining chips so that they can retain power. I think these are terrible negotiations, but I feel that the Israeli government is in an awful position. In part because they've been trying to appease the international community and not at the same time. But in part because the people are getting tired of the war, that they want the hostages back, and so they are willing to capitulate to Hamas's demands, which increases their power and credibility in the eyes of the Palestinians and in the eyes of the international community, who seems to be capitulating to Hamas as well. Because some point in September, we have Canada, Britain, and France who are supposed to actually openly advocate for a Palestinian state at the United Nations. I find that tragic. I find it tragic because it inspires the Palestinian terrorists and the Palestinian movement in general, which is genocidal, folks, and Islamicist in nature, to continue fighting. And they have to stop. Period. It has to be stopped. Hamas has to go. The leaders have to go. And if there is ever any hope of a Palestinian state, it has to be a democratic, a secular state, which I do not think is in the cards right now. Anyway, Michael, did you give the capitalist holiday yesterday, or did I?
I did give it yesterday. Yes.
Well, I think with these Econ 101 points, I think we can all see that a free world is a better world. A free world is a benevolent world. The trader principle, where we exchange to mutual benefit, where we at least believe we are getting a mutual benefit, is a beneficent world. A world wherein regulations are applied and controls are applied upon people preemptively is a world that treats human beings as sinners out of the box, not as rational agents, not as moral agents, not as free agents in their own lives, but as people who are automatically bad, who must be controlled, because left to their own devices, they will do bad things. To me, this is a horrible orientation towards humanity, and it leads to horrible repercussions. A capitalist society is a free one, and it allows people the dignity of moral free agency, meaning you are the captain of your destiny to the extent that you can control it. You are the rational actor in your life, and you act for your own values, not for the values that some distant bureaucrat thinks are more important than yours. Michael, if you want to add anything, Rational Egoist show is coming up besides me, which I think I will be up on the Rational Egoist show coming up.
Yes, you will. We've got, like I said yesterday, an interview with the economist Don Boudreaux. I've got a scheduled interview with a guy who goes by the name of Fabian Liberty. And this afternoon, I'm actually going to take some time to reach out to some folks to get some more episodes up and running. Check it out.
I like that. Fabian Liberty. Maybe we can bring him into the capitalist movement.
Well, we have to see what his views are, because I don't know yet.
Okay. It implies an incremental, slow sort of compromising approach, but let's see if there's anything there for us. All right, folks, you have 23 hours to check your premises. If you are anywhere on the socialist side, and I don't think many people in the chat are, it's time. You got 23 hours to shift that around, to go over to the AmericanCapitalistParty.org and read the policies there and get on board with the change, with the only party, I think, of principle out there in the political universe that can actually make things happen. All right, so be a part of the change. We'll see you here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. All right, until then, happy premises, my friends.